All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick celebrating Banner 18 for the Boston Celtics. We will talk about that. We will talk about the title odds for next season and then a little baseball chat with the National League Rookie of the Year and Cy Young markets, and then a little Olympic trials swimming and Tour de France and tennis grass court chat as well, where Drew will largely carry us. But let's talk about the Celtics and the Mavs first. The Celtics, they win ultimately comfortably in a game that felt like it was over the moment that Peyton Pritchard hit the buzzer beater, such as his nature. What did you make of the game, and any, I guess, takeaways from the game or the series in terms of betting going forward?
I mean, I'm very thankful that it's over. Did not want to sweat a game 6. Did not want to sweat a game 7. I'm happy that everybody did their jobs. I thought the Celtics, they pressed all their advantages the same way they had in games 1 and 2, and to a lesser degree in game 3. And it was a great team. That is really like just a perfectly assembled team for the style of basketball that we are currently living in. And the watching the game, as soon as the Celtics started putting a little bit of pressure on the Mavericks at the end of the first quarter, you were like, okay, here we go. The crowd got into it. They were behind it in a positive instead of a nervous type of energy. And I thought that was, that helped the guys really kind of help extend things in the second quarter. The Peyton Pritchard buzzer beater 3, again, like, what a gift to have a guy, a role player, a bench player who has developed that skill to be able to hit the heave to give you that, those free points. And that was basically backbreaking, because now you take all that momentum into the halftime and game is over. And luckily the Celtics didn't really need Kristaps Porzingis in the second half, because he should not have been out there playing at all. I think looking at the MVP voting, I'm guessing a lot of the voters filled out their ballots at halftime and didn't take into account sort of the second half scoring burst from Tatum that got him into the lead for both the Celtics leading scorer and finals leading assist categories. But all that said, it was a great night to be a Celtics backer. I reflect on my prices for the series, and I'm like, yep, no, I don't think I would do anything differently. I think it should have been closer to minus 400, and we just got sort of one of the random examples of happens every year where there's an inefficiency in a major liquid market in the playoffs that I think is you just have to capitalize on those when they come around. And happy that the Celtics didn't make us sweat that one out. But overall, this is, championships, banners, flags fly forever, banners fly forever. This is you can't take this away. But my goodness gracious, they got fortunate on this path to the finals. Doesn't take away from the fact that they were the best team, but definitely kind of puts in perspective a little bit how you want to price them going forward, particularly with some of the uncertainty around Porzingis and his health. I mean, it was a cool moment. What were some of your reflections on the game in the series?
I think with the idea that they do get lucky, and certainly they got lucky at the path through the East, but what will get a little bit overshadowed is that they had Porzingis for 59 minutes in the last 3 rounds of the playoffs, and he is, to me, their second best player. So that cancels out a lot of the luck. He actually looked okay by the end of the game the game 5, but he didn't look good at the start, and they were just getting wide open threes every time. Strange saga with his injury. But the things that stand out the most to me, one, the game 5 was a reminder that sometimes it's hard to visualize and project what home court advantage is going to look like, because I thought Dallas would cover game 5. I thought the Celtics would win, but if I was going to back someone at +7 or -7, it would have been Dallas at the plus. But it's just difficult to project that, the Celtics are just going to come out and very likely play with more effort and more intensity because they are back home, and the game is just going to look so much different than game 4 and even game 3 to a certain extent. So that was the first thing. And it was a very Celtics win in that a couple of buddies messaged me after the first quarter and mid-second quarter being like, Celtics offensive process isn't great here. And I agreed. But at the same time, I was just like, it just doesn't matter. Like, if they're going to play defense like this, they're just not going to lose. And that's what has always made this team special, is the level that they can get to on defense, where everyone focuses on the end game offense and how it gets stagnant. This team has been the best defense in the league over the past 3 years. That is what makes them special. This year, they also happen to have the greatest offense of all time statistically, which helped, and that's what pushed them over the top in the end. But to me, the moment I really got bought in on this Celtics team to an extent was last year in round 2 against Philly in game 4. There was a cutaway to Joe Mazzulla mic'd up in a huddle where he was screaming at the team that there is another level that our defense can get to, and we need to find that level. And when they find that level, that is always when they look unstoppable. Now, and their defense was incredible in that game 4. They ended up losing the game, but just the level that they got to in that game, the level they got to in game 5, in game 2 in the finals as well, for the stretch in game 3 in the third quarter where they effectively won the title. This team is, that's when they become special. And I think that it's going to be difficult because statistically this is like an all-time great team, but it doesn't feel like that at all. But I think it doesn't feel like that at all because we didn't see Kristaps Porzingis and the full version of this team more than for segments really of games 1 and 2, because he wasn't himself in game 5. Like, I think if he had been fully healthy, and you could argue that, well, you can't really expect him to be fully healthy because that's the nature of who he is as a player and why perhaps he was available. But he is what makes the team special. And the fact that they're able to win and go 15-3 in the playoffs without him is pretty impressive. But what did you think of finals MVP in the end? Did you think Brown was going to win 30 seconds before it was announced?
I didn't, but I kind of think a lot of the voting probably happened around halftime. Once the game's over, let's get our votes in, let's write our stories, and then we can just enjoy the celebration and take in not have to work after this is over. That was kind of my guess. I thought it was pretty 50-50. Maybe slightly in Tatum, but his shooting was pretty atrocious throughout the finals, and you want to hold that against him as kind of a he was holding back the Celtics offense to a degree, sure, but he was so instrumental in what they were doing defensively, as we've talked about on this podcast. He was instrumental in what they were doing offensively as a facilitator in particular, and I think Jaylen Brown just had a little bit cleaner of a performance. And then in like the most high leverage moments of the whole series, it was really Jaylen Brown that stepped up and got the job done, particularly in game 3. So you want to tilt a little bit in that direction and give it to Brown. No issues with that. I'm just, there's going to be this perpetuation in the same way there was for Steph. If the Celtics go on and win multiple titles now, but Jason Tatum doesn't have a finals MVP, is going to be like this weird thing that's haunting him. Like, you could kind of feel history repeating itself in that regard. And I think that's pretty dumb because obviously Tatum is a very special player. And you can kind of cringe all you want at, his outward, kind of presentation of his, his character in the basketball universe. But it's pretty undeniable what he does is extremely special on the basketball court. And the fact that Brown and Tatum both took their games up a notch this year and found a way to play such perfect complementary basketball was pretty cool. And, they're the happiest. I was the happiest by far for Al Horford, who I didn't even realize had the inglorious record of most career playoff games without winning a championship up till last night. 17 seasons in the league and finally getting it done is very cool. So he's obviously a huge feel good story. There were people like, oh, I kind of feel bad for Marcus Smart not having been here since he was such a part of the buildup of the team overall. But I kind of wonder if Tatum and Brown make the leap that they did this year, particularly playing complementary basketball with each other, if they don't move off Smart and kind of get a guy who's a more complementary player from an offensive standpoint while also having the same skill set from a point of attack defense in Holiday. So ultimately it was just a perfectly well-built team. And I think the decision to give Brown the finals MVP is totally fine by me.
Yeah, I think with the finals MVP, it's a reminder that I think people, for the most part, they really overrate the idea of recency bias in these awards, where I actually think it goes the other way, and that entrenchment is a lot more powerful of an idea in these markets and these awards than recency bias, where we see this time and time again. Like, it is just the reason why I was pretty confident. I didn't think it was a lock, but I thought that Brown was going to win after the game finished. And a big part of that is that it's just so hard to win these awards at the death and win it in the final game and undo what people have already kind of positioned in their minds. It's why, and that's a big reason why D'Amico Ryans didn't win NFL Coach of the Year. I think it's a reason why Naz Reid only won Sixth Man of the Year by like 2 votes. When if you look back, it's like, well, you know, he's on a team that's competing for the 1 seed and the Kings are flirting to be a 10 seed. Like, why is it this close? Because Monk had just been entrenched for so long. I think back to 2022 National League MVP, everyone just decided it was Paul Goldschmidt, and no one realized that Manny Machado actually has a better case by the end of the season. But no, we've already decided. So I think entrenchment is powerful with these things. I would have voted for Tatum. I think Tatum was the best player in the series. I mean, he had the most points, rebounds, assists, but everything Brown does is a little more obvious, I think. And people just, in these awards, they really don't like bad shooting percentages.
Yeah.
And Tatum, I think he ended up shooting sub 40% for the series. And that was, I think, ultimately a bit of a death knell. The last thing I want to say on the Celtics is I think a lot of the reason why we were betting them all season, I think why they were value in the market, was this idea that you can't win, or it's very hard to win a title with Jason Tatum as your best player. And obviously I disagree with that. And I think what people just didn't focus on enough is that, yes, Brown and Tatum are deeply flawed players in their own way, but the context that they've been given with this roster is just completely unfair. And it's a cheat code where, yeah, Jaylen Brown has a loose handle and he's getting stripped time and time again in Game 7 against the Heat last year. Let's give him the most perfectly spaced floor in the history of basketball, so everything is just a little bit more open and he can't get his dribble stripped as much. And it's a similar thing with Tatum. Like, these guys, they're not amazing passers. Well, it's a lot easier to make a pass if all you have to do is beat your man, and then you know that help has to come off of a shooter, and then you pass to the shooter. It got so much easier for them. And the other thing too is that I think there's the idea that the Celtics are kind of not a dumb team, but have dumb aspects and maybe are lacking in resilience. My thing with this team has always been that, yeah, maybe they're not the smartest on offense, but they've always been an incredibly resilient team. They were down 3-2 to the Bucks in 2022, won Game 6 on the road, win Game 7. They had to win a Game 7 in Miami that year as well. Last year, they're down 3-2 to Philly, season slipping away in Game 6. They come back and win that, then they blow the Sixers out in Game 7. They go down 3-0 to the Heat. Season looks over. They managed to force a Game 7. Like, this has always been an incredibly resilient team. It's just a team that can get pretty stupid on offense at the end of games sometimes. So you could always, I think, trust that the effort was going to be there. It might not look brilliant. And that's why I think that Games 2 and 5 were kind of the perfect epitome of what this team is, where like there are definitely flaws in offensive process, but ultimately just the talent level, the level of defense, and just having enough talent to put up enough points on offense was likely always going to get them there.
Yeah, their mismatches against the Mavericks also were pretty awesome. Like,
yeah.
I don't know that I'm laying the same prices that I laid with the Celtics pre-series if it's the Nuggets, if
or
it's
the Thunder or the Wolves.
The Thunder or the Wolves. Yeah, Mavericks was hand in glove. Like, you were built to beat this team, and they exercised every advantage the whole way, and it was quite cool. I liked your point about the it's tough to win it at the death. I would say that the opposite, though, is true, which is very easy to lose it at the death. You can do something at the very end that colors people's opinions to where they are now looking for another answer. I'll have Brock Purdy MVP, but
yes.
I would say that your point about, like, if you are trying to make up a gap, it's quite hard. I think that is basically what we learned. And again, like, I'm assuming the votes were probably cast at halftime because of the 7-4 count. The tally is a little suspicious to me, but whatever the case is, it was a team effort through and through, and the Celtics team is going to be back.
I think to your point about Purdy, the 2 awards that come to mind most recently about awards that have been won or lost at the death, Purdy losing MVP and Joel Embiid winning MVP in 2023, where he basically won that award with that 53-point game or whatever against the Celtics in the final week. But with both of those, no one ever wanted to vote for Purdy. And everyone always wanted to vote for Embiid.
Right.
And look, Purdy, like, even if you wanted to vote for Purdy, you couldn't after that game because it was just so bad. But I do think that recency becomes most enlivened when people are really looking for an excuse to vote for someone. And those moments at the death gave those opportunities. Before we move off basketball, the odds for next season's championship, the Celtics are your favorite at 3-1. Again, the Nuggets are plus 750 in the second favorite, and then there's a real cluster of teams. The Mavs, the Bucks, the Wolves, the Thunder, and then dropping down to the Knicks, Sixers, Clippers. Anyone at price who is interesting to you?
A couple of thoughts here. Celtics being your heavy favorites makes perfect sense. Plus 125 to the East is actually a little under my price. Is kind of, I'm projecting sort of who's moving parts. The Bucks price is the most ridiculous. I don't think the Bucks are realistically your second choice in the East. And yet they're 10-1. The team in the East to keep eyes on, there are two. The Sixers, obviously, if they land Paul George, which is strongly rumored that they're going to make a max offer. Now the Clippers can come back and make a bigger offer, and he might just stay in LA. But Paul George on the Sixers with Embiid and Maxey is interesting. But again, locking up money on a Sixers team that requires the health of Embiid over the balance of 9 months does not feel very good to me. So I'll probably wait and try to price, snipe a price on the Sixers if we get there. And then I'm kind of intrigued what the Magic are going to do, because there's a lot of guards available all of a sudden. There's a lot of shooting available in the free agency pool all of a sudden. And if the Magic can, fortify the backcourt a little bit, they might be a fun runner in the East. But ultimately, I would expect the Celtics come through cleanly. I think the Nuggets price is bad. I think that should be closer to 10-1. I think there's relatively flat earth at the top of the West, and it might actually start and end with Oklahoma City as your wire-to-wire one seed in this conference, particularly if they do something fun at the in the free agency market. If Sam Presti uses any of his assets to go get another bona fide player for this closing five. How do you think Isaiah Hartenstein? How does he look in Thunder Blue as another big option there? But there's a lot of interesting things the Thunder can do to kind of make that roster even stronger, and they would be my pick in the West in a vacuum. But Nuggets not into that price, and similarly T-Wolves not into that price, and I think the Mavericks certainly at 9-1 I'm not into. You have this extended preseason run now for Doncic. He's going to go play Olympic basketball for Slovenia. If you're telling me he's in prime shape to start next season, I beg to differ.
Yeah, I think I agree with basically everything you said. I would have odds agnostic. I would have the Thunder as favorites to win the West. And I think it's just also kind of difficult to just kind of project forward what linear improvement from young players kind of looks like and manifests. Like Jalen Williams is going to be better. Chet Holmgren's going to be better. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander could potentially be even better. Like, he probably doesn't have that much for him, but the other guys do. Cason Wallace is going to be better. Giddey cannot be worse, I think. So I think
he might not be up to you.
He's probably not going to be on the team, or he may not be on the team. I would hope he's not if I'm a Thunder fan. I think that, and they have all their assets and everything, so they can make moves, and they have the cap space for the Hartenstein thing, if that's the route they want to go down. So I would have them the favorites. If I was going to make any bets, though, the three bets I would make, you can get the Celtics at plus 350 to win the title. To me, that's still too long. It's not like I don't think it's crazy. Like, I thought that the Celtics being plus 500 before the season, this season, was crazy. I don't think plus 350 is crazy, but I think it's value. I think the Sixers at 16-1, just because of the upside and the fact that their team is just definitely going to be better. It may not be Paul George, but it will be something. Like, Daryl Morey's not coming away empty-handed. That team will be better. They will be the second most likely team to win the title in the East. I am almost certain when they have their roster set. And then the other one, and I always get sucked in by this team, but the Memphis Grizzlies shouldn't be 25-1 to win the West. I don't think the gap between them and everyone else is that significant. They still have Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., Marcus Smart. They found some young pieces. They have a lot of assets. They have pick 9 in the draft, which maybe they could move or whatever. They have pieces, and I just don't think that 25-1 to win the West is a little bit too big. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. I don't know what to do with the Grizzlies, though. I'll be honest with you, because the Ja Morant stuff is not as off court stuff, but just specifically his style of basketball. I'm nervous now that as he gets a little bit into this portion of his career age wise, that either doesn't translate as well as he gets older, or he continues to have these sort of injury issues that keep him off the court. The other kind of intriguing one I had for you: this team stinks. They've got no one. They've got a bunch of drafted capital, but they might have the best player in basketball next year.
The Spurs.
100-1.
I don't think they can win the title. I saw that Victor Wembanyama went up 100-1 to win MVP. I think that is more likely you bet. Like, could he, if they somehow were a 4 seed and he was all world, maybe. I think Luka should be the favorite in that market. I think Shea should be second. I think Jokic is going to have a hard time winning for a 4th time. But yeah, Wembanyama, I'm excited to see what his defensive player of the year price goes up at.
That's going to be that's the award bet that I'm most excited for as well.
Yeah, we'll see what that one goes back up at. All right, let's move on. The toughest cycling race of the year is back. The Tour de France takes the world's top cyclists on a mountainous 21-day journey. Stream exclusive coverage all race long, starting Saturday, June 29th at 6:30 a.m. Eastern on Peacock. Any thoughts about the tour?
So many thoughts. Most entertaining thing I watched last night was not the NBA Finals, Jay.
Really?
It was the start of the of season 2 of Unchained, the Tour de France, like behind the scenes of last year's Tour de France on Netflix. Oh my gosh, so entertaining listening to the teams and the riders, like just uncandid, just like, you know, but when things go sideways, they're just, it's, you get such an honest look at what it is like on the you know, on the kind of behind the scenes side of a race like this. It's so good. And 2-time winner Jonas Vingegaard of formerly of Jumbo Visma, now of Visma Lisa Bike. He's had a rough run up to this Tour de France. There were some questions swirling whether he was even going to be fit to ride. It looks like he's going to go. It looks like Wout van Aert's going to go. So Visma is going to have a full, you know, a relatively healthy and full squad. That said, Tadej Pogačar, the Slovenian, his numbers running up to this look unbelievable. I would be very surprised if he's not your winner. And after we talked a little bit about it yesterday, I did some price shopping. It's already pretty cooked. Like I'm not the first one to market here at all that Pogačar is going to be good. He's already kind of in the minus 240 range at some places before they've even finalized rosters for the various teams. So UAE's Pogačar probably Team UAE, not he's from Slovenia, but he rides for Team UAE. They're going to be tough. They're the team to beat this year. And a couple fun facts for you for the Tour de France. Starts in Florence, Italy. And for the first time in 111 ridings, it will not end in Paris because of the crossover with the Olympics. They're going to finish in Nice this year on the south of France because logistically they just couldn't figure out getting the tour into Paris during the Olympics. So, yeah, really interesting tour this year. It's a really beautiful route, a couple of all-time classic stages, and should be a good one.
Okay. I once fell into a river in Florence after I was overserved Sangiovese. It was disappointing that the establishment allowed me to reach that point. It was very much entirely their fault. I just want to make clear the best thing that I saw last night on television was very much the Boston Celtics winning the NBA title. So we are far apart there, but I'm glad you enjoyed the second season of Unchained. All right. Yeah. I'm looking forward to the tour. It's something that always wanted to get a little bit more involved in. It's very much up my alley, at least it should be. So maybe this is the year where I jump in because it is visually a magnificent spectacle. And there are plenty of rorts in it.
Yeah, as well. You don't need to watch season 1 of Unchained, by the way, if you just want. And you don't even need to watch the whole season 2. Just watch like a couple random episodes because it's such a cool behind the scenes look of like what it's like to be on a professional team and the managers and everything. It's just unreal.
Okay, Unchained. I like it. Well, let's try unchain some winners in the National Cy Young, National League Cy Young market, which is an odd market at the moment. Yamamoto he's out of this market effectively. He has a rotator cuff strain and could miss months. He's not going to win this award. Neither is Spencer Strider, who is your heavy favorite coming into the season. He is obviously done for the year as well. This is very much a market and an award of attrition as much as talent. So often the biggest rorts in this market often come when the market just makes someone way too short 10 starts into the season. I remember 2-3 years ago, Jacob deGrom was minus 1,000 to win this award in May, which is just like, all right, we've still got more than half the season to go, and he's a pitcher with an elbow. But right now, Ranger Suarez is our favorite at plus 325. Which still seems strange to say, even though he has been very good. It's still Ranger Suarez, who came in as a distant third in the Phillies rotation. Tyler Glasnow, 4-1. Zach Wheeler, plus 450. Shota Imanaga, 6-1. And then Chris Sale, Max Fried, Logan Webb, and Sonny Gray. I suspect that your winner is going to come from one of those names. Nola and Cease have been blown up lately, so they're in a bit of trouble. Mackenzie Gore is 50-1. He's somewhat interesting as a long shot, but I don't think he's going to do it. The way that I look at this market, Drew, is that so there's two different versions of WAR: Baseball Reference WAR and Fangraphs WAR. WAR isn't as important for Cy Young as it is for Rookie of the Year, and particularly for MVP, just because there are so many other stats which have become the mainstream and kind of headlining stats for pitchers, ERA, strikeouts. WAR factors in somewhat, FIP factors in. But for the most part, what I'm looking at is by the end of the season, Baseball Reference WAR is more reflective of who's going to win the award because that is based off of ERA. But right now, what is more interesting to me is Fangraphs WAR, which that is powered by FIP. And FIP is about underlying numbers as opposed to actual numbers. And we're not at the point yet with the voting masses where people are going to vote off of underlying numbers. They vote based on what has actually happened on the field, which I actually think is somewhat fair enough, though I could hear arguments for the other side in terms of what's in control of the pitcher. But to me right now, the underlying stuff is more interesting because that's going to be more predictive of what we have going forward. And so based off of that, I think the bet to be made is on Chris Sale, whose price ranges from 11-1 to 16-1. He is effectively tied for the lead in Fangraphs WAR. He leads all candidates in FIP. He is second in XFIP. He has elite strikeout rates. His ERA is under 3. And also the other thing is that he's Chris Sale, and everyone's going to want to vote for him because he's come so close in the past. I think he should actually have shorter odds than, there's 16-1 out there on him. I think he is just more likely odds agnostic to win than Zach Wheeler, than Shota Imanaga, and then Tyler Glasnow. I think Suarez has a case to be the favorite just because he's banked so much of a 1.77 ERA, but I would have Sale right there and half of his current price in the market.
Yeah, I think if you had blindfolded me and said, guess who the favorite is, I never would have guessed that currently it's Suarez. I didn't have this. I just wasn't tracking that he was doing this well at all. But if you had blindfolded me and said who we're going to make a case for, I definitely would have said Sale. You look at I looked at the exact same two things you referenced. I looked at the Fangraphs WAR leaderboard. Sale, Glasnow, dead heat, barely behind Suarez. Okay, that's all I needed to see. He's leading FIP, which if you don't already know, fielding independent pitching. That is all I needed to see. And Sale having gotten a little bit more of a break the last couple of years because he hasn't been, hasn't had full usage because of injury recovery for random stuff, not stuff that I would be worried about him finishing this season. Has me that much more intrigued. Glasnow is the opposite end of the spectrum. I think he's more likely to miss time because of nagging injury stuff, just because of the type of injuries he's sustained. And I think Suarez is catchable because the gap is not big enough to make up here. So Chris Sale, fully on board. 16-1 seems crazy. This should be a 3-player heat at the top. From what I can tell, with Suarez having a slight lead.
Yep, no, I agree with that. The other two guys I would keep an eye on, Logan Webb, who I always like in this market because he is probably the favorite to lead the NL in innings, and people do like the workhorse aspect. Like he finished second last year, which I don't think anyone was expecting, but people really love the fact that, you know, he's a 200 inning pitcher, and the Giants are looking like they're going to be better than they were last year, where he was largely under the radar. So I think Logan Webb is a good one to monitor. And then the other guy to monitor is Sonny Gray, who actually, again, finished second in AL Cy Young last year, which I don't think maybe people were paying that much attention to because Garrett Cole was such a runaway winner and an obvious winner. But Sonny Gray is having a better year with the underlying stuff than he did last year. He is 7th in Fangraphs WAR at the moment. He has a 2.59 FIP, which is elite. So he is someone who I think can get in the mix. I think 20-1 is slight value. I probably just prefer to watch and let that play out for a little bit at the moment. And I would just be fading. The sneaky thing in this market is that Zach Wheeler, who was the favorite for a long time, he's not having a good year. And it's being masked at the moment by the surface level stuff. But I mean, he has a 3.49 FIP, 3.46 xFIP. He's walking almost 3 guys per 9. It's just kind of, it's gone off the rails a little bit for Zach, and he can definitely turn it around. And he's still got the 2.84 ERA, so he's not done by any means, but he is not. I thought there was a chance he might just run away with this award, and he's definitely not going to do that. And I don't think he's even more likely than guys like Sale to win, as well as Suarez and Glasnow. So that's what I think about the Cy Young market. Rookie of the Year, which is a fun one. Now we have, we got one friend who's very obsessed with Shota Imanaga, which I enjoy. I enjoy that from Bo. Shota is -110 to win National League Rookie of the Year. Paul Skeens Shota's now +100. Skeens is +150. And then we have a couple of hitters in Joey Ortiz, 11-1, Jackson Merrill, 12-1. And Mason Wynn is 20-1. I wouldn't quite put a line through him, but I think he is a tier below these guys. What do you think of this market?
Coin flip here. Skeens has the buzz, the momentum, the excitement. People are already calling him the greatest pitcher in Pittsburgh history, potentially after 2 months. So I mean, he's coming hard. He's fun to watch. He's putting up some impressive performances, and people are, there's not a lot of things that kind of draw attention to baseball this time of year just because of the length of the season. But Skeens is right at the top of the list right now in terms of eyeballs, attention, and momentum. So I get it. I get the price closure. It makes sense to me. And if what we've seen from the last month, we have 3 more months of it, then he will win.
Yeah, I think in a nutshell, I mean, he has arguably been it's a small sample. He's pitched 39 innings, but he's got a 2.11 xFIP, a 2.29 ERA, striking out over 12 guys per 9. He's been almost just on a rate basis the best pitcher in baseball. He's 22 years old as well, which helps his case going up against effectively a young veteran in Shota Imanaga. And in a nutshell, I would skew towards the idea that workload is always, across all sports, really overrated in Rookie of the Year. People focus more on the talent because they're projecting forward a little bit, I think, in this award, and going with kind of the peak that you achieve in a season gets weighted a bit more than perhaps the volume of work. But I think with Shota, the one thing that works in his favor is that he has a little Naz Reid to him, where he's kind of a little memey and a kind of cult phenomenon in his own way, which I think does help. And I think that balances out a fair bit the fact that Skeens is, the young phenom and the traditional rookie. But I agree. I think it's neck and neck between those two. I think that Ortiz and Merrill are both very interesting. I think they're fairly reasonably priced now, but Ortiz and Merrill, like these guys are, Ortiz now is, he's banked 2.3 WAR. Jackson Merrill's at 1.5 WAR, but his underlying stats are excellent and in a way more impressive than Ortiz's. So I think those guys, they will struggle a bit just because, relative to just other players who play their position, they're not as special as Imanaga and Skeens, and I think that will weigh against them. But Imanaga and Skeens are both pitchers. They're more vulnerable to attrition. They're more vulnerable, I think, to just variance where, if Skeens has If Skeens gives up a couple of 3-run home runs, then all of a sudden he's really up against it, and it can just turn in one day. Whereas with Merrill and Ortiz, if they have the worst day possible, they go like 0 for 4, and then they just play the next day. So I think there's just more variance with the pitches. I think this is a reasonably priced market. Like individual, I'd probably still be trying to back the no side of Imanaga at evens, but I think he is slightly the most likely player to win over Skeens, but I think those guys are neck and neck, and I'll just be monitoring Ortiz and Merrill, who I think are by far the most likely hitters to win. And usually, as a general rule, you want to be on the hitter in these markets.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, that's where voters have skewed a little bit arbitrarily in the past. So I've tried to explain. I get that hitters play every day and starting pitchers only play once every 5 days, but starting pitchers can add as much value once every 5 days as a hitter does in 5 days. But people don't seem to have absorbed that, and they skew to the hitter. So if it does get close, that may be the direction it goes. But for the moment, I think this is reasonably priced. Okay. Don't miss the ultimate tryout for the toughest team to make. Elite athletes from all over the country hope to join Team USA in Paris, but only the best will be selected. Watch the US Olympic team trials live June 15th through 30th on NBC and Peacock. All right. Olympic trials. And before we get into a bit of tennis, what has piqued your interest in the trials, Drew?
Yeah, so most interesting thing I watched this weekend was definitely Olympic trials. We're 3 days in. It's been so good, so much drama. The fact that only the top 2 make it is just still mind-blowing to me. The other kind of fun thing is like there's drama in who's going to qualify for some of these events, like the men's 4am and the women's 4am. And you're watching like, oh yeah, this guy's gonna finally break through. He's got a great story. Like they've done their research, and they're like, look, he finished third last time around, and he was starstruck swimming between these two, Olympic guys. And his time that he swam in just like a random meet during the Olympics would have been enough to win gold. And you're like, oh my gosh, I hope he makes it this time. Well, he makes it. And then you're watching the race, and you're watching the time, you're watching the splits, and you're looking at the world record. You're like, oh my God, that world record is way the hell out there. Oh my God, the guy that did the world record just did it, and he swims for France. So you're watching like this poor kid who's, this is just one random example, but 4 a.m., top qualifier for the U.S. finally breaks through, would have won gold in Tokyo, but now there's a swimmer from France in his way who's going to beat him by like 10 seconds, 400 IM, and he's probably going to get silver. And, these stories are just incredible. It happened in the women's 4 AM too. You had a woman break through who had already qualified for the marathon swimming. She wins her event in the women's 4 AM. It's very exciting. And you look at the world record and you're like, okay, it's 4:24 and they're showing the race live and it's a really tight race, really good finish. And you're like, oh, Summer McIntosh would have just touched, and they're halfway down the pool. There are some international swimmers, particularly France's Leon Marchand, Canada's Summer McIntosh, and then in particular the Aussie women in the freestyle events and the backstroke events that are going to make life very hard for the U.S. in terms of winning gold. Katie Ledecky has been awesome. She's been winning events as expected, and it does not even look remotely tapered. So she is going to have something to say about some of the freestyle golds, surely the 800 and the 1500. But her time in the 400 was not going to be good enough to beat Titmus. Her time in the 200 is not going to be good enough for her to even swim that race. She's probably just going to just do the relay only. And I got to tell you, our women's 4x200 relay might lose by 25 meters to the Australian 4x2 because they have, two of the all-time leading swimmers, anchoring that one. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun watching it and seeing some of the new faces rise. A lot of the kind of known quantities, elite champions, the Ryan Murphys of the world in the backstroke events, the Lily Kings of the world in the 100 breaststroke. Like they showed up, they're doing their thing, they qualified. There will be veteran leadership in Paris for this team, along with some of the newcomers. And I think overall we're going to show well medal count wise, but goals I think are going to be a little bit tough to come by considering the state of international swimming broadly. And I think I'm the thing that I'm most looking forward to between now and the meet ending. We have yet to see Caleb Dressel swim. He had a bit of a retirement between his Tokyo success and is this attempt at a comeback. And I really have just no idea what to expect from him in terms of showing up and being able to beat this field. Right now, he is a dog in the 100 freestyle. He is, I think, likely to make the team, but I don't know how likely it is that he's going to replicate the success he had in Tokyo, and very, very eagerly anticipating seeing him doing some of his prelim swims and get a sense of what type of shape he's in.
Okay, I love it. As we've talked about before, now is the time to start grinding on the Olympics, because these markets are incredibly poorly priced for the most part, very vulnerable, not a ton of liquidity, though there is on some events, and there's enough to make it generally worth one's while, because there's you can get minus 150 on, minus 1100 fair on some types of things that will pop up across the journey. So look forward to diving into that more as we get closer.
Yeah. Real quick, my favorite story: top qualifier for the men's 100 breaststroke.
Yeah.
Full-time job as an electrical engineer. He's a nerd like me. Nick Fink. He swam a great 100 breaststroke, and I don't know if Adam Peaty is realistically going to be competing in Paris. If he is, I don't think he's really anywhere close to his world record top form. So Nick Fink could be an important story for us, in particular, winning. It is sort of the U.S. men's swimming right to win the 4x100 medley relay, and breaststroke is a huge part of that. So hopefully he shows up and he's ready to race for us in the breaststroke. But his wife, former Olympic champion. She's pregnant. She's at the races, excited. Nick Fink, master's degree from Georgia Tech. And electrical engineer, full-time job as electrical engineer, still has enough time to train and swim and be the fastest man in the 100 breaststroke. I absolutely love that.
Okay, go Nick Fink. Let's close out with little tennis chat as we pivot to grass court season. ATP. How do I say this? Halle Berry.
Halle.
Yeah.
It's Halle. Yeah.
Okay, Halle in Germany. We've got Daniil Medvedev. Lord of the press conference. I think he's my favorite press conference in tennis. He is a magnificent contentman, pretty good tennis player as well. And he is minus 700 in his upcoming match against Mr. Zhang. Anything that you like on the card at ATP Halle?
Yeah, let's talk about kind of grass in general. Huge pivot from the slow clay of Roland Garros to the grass conditions that are now playing across Europe. And there are certain players who you immediately upgrade because their game is so attuned to being good on grass. The kind of known quantities, the Matteo Berrettini, former finalist at Wimbledon, the guys that have an especially strong serve, the guys that play a lot of grass tennis, all get bumps. Jack Draper winning Stuttgart was a huge breakthrough for him. He's going to have something to say about probably a quarter finalist, a type of appearance, if not a semifinalist this year at Wimbledon. The known quantities who are good on clay, the Alcarazes and the Sinners of the world are kind of getting their feet under them right now, playing a little bit uneven from what I saw today with both of those players, but still, kind of producing highs that are just outstanding. The real upgrade to this point, and this is a wild throwback, flash from the past, former finalist Milos Raonic yesterday. Wow. Milos Raonic yesterday broke the all-time record for aces in a single best of 3 tennis match against Scam Nori, and he served 47 aces and had 70 winners. 70, and the just for fun, right? 47 service points won with an ace. 36 service points won with a rally. He won more points with aces than rallying. Which is just incredible. Anyway, the important thing about Milos Raonic is he's healthy, and he's going to have something to say about Wimbledon as well. He's going to ruin somebody's Wimbledon, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's going to be a top 8 seeded player who thinks, hey, with the right draw, I could do something, that runs into Milos Raonic round 2 and is out. because Raonic he's on point right now. I haven't seen him this healthy in at least 5 years. And he's kind of a guy that his end of his career got so injury riddled, and he got bit by the bug and could really only perform well on this type of surface. And so excited to see what he does. Just kind of one other nugget about Halle. Two nuggets. One, you're absolutely right. Medvedev is the star of the ATP circuit. He is the smartest. He's the most cerebral player, and he does produce the most outstanding press by far. And number two, Halle carries with it an inglorious curse. The winner of Halle typically struggles mightily at Wimbledon for whatever reason, and we had like a 8-year stretch where the Halle winner was out in the first round or something crazy like that. So there's obviously glory with winning Halle, as well as kind of the immediate curse. The other fun thing about Medvedev, real quick. And I don't know if we talked about this on the show or not, but did you know Medvedev, I think, has 21 career titles to this point in his tennis career?
Yeah.
You know how many he's won in the same city? 0. He's won 21 titles in 21 cities. He has never repeated.
Out of the world.
He's never repeated at the same tournament in his entire career, despite winning 21. It's the most outrageous, ridiculous stat I've ever come across in tennis, because it's if you're good at a surface, if you're good at a venue like that, typically that carries over year to year. But no, he's one and done at every tournament. Interesting
glory curse parlay as well. Correlated parlay of glory curse of glory, and then Wimbledon curse. But that's interesting. Yeah, that is bizarre with Medvedev. I guess that kind of tracks with just what a unique and strange player that he is, that he wouldn't have any carryover. Still, though, you would expect him to have won, multiple titles at the same, hard court venue, which is his strongest surface. But alas. All right. Before we sign off, do I need to bet Ons Jabeur to win Wimbledon, or what's going on there?
I think no. Okay. She did not produce a special level that I saw in her first foray on grass. She went out. She went out to Pliskova, yeah, and maybe quarterfinals, semifinals. And while she's playing well enough to do something at Wimbledon, I think it's notable that the rest of the women's field is all looking like more comfortable on grass this time than they did the last couple of cycles. I think the COVID kind of interruption to the tennis calendar and really not having Wimbledon at all in 2020 kind of delayed a lot of the progression for the younger women players on grass, and it looks like that is kind of behind us now. And so the huge advantage Jabeur had on grass over the rest of the field from a couple of years ago is no more, sadly. But that said, she still produces a style of tennis that is especially good on grass for none of the same reasons as Milos Raonic, right? She's just got variety in her shots and can do some special things in terms of the drop shot and really just mixing it up in a way that makes her grass game just outstanding. So, I think she'll be in the mix. Surely she's going to need a favorable draw. Her ranking has slipped considerably because she just hasn't been producing results in 2024 so far. So she's going to need a little bit of luck. But it's not like you really have any. We're not seeing a huge difference between the first and the 9th best women's tennis player on grass to this point.
Still can't believe she beat Rybakina and Sabalenka back to back, and then completely no-showed against Marketa Vondrousova after having taken down the two N bosses, and then lose to Vondrousova, who could barely hold her racket by the end of her own semi against Svitolina. She was so nervous. But anyway, listen, if we get the Boston Celtics home, we can get the tennis version of the Boston Celtics on Jabeur home as well.
That'd be good. That'd be good. So,
got a bit more faith in Jason Tatum and Joe Mazzulla and the lads than Ons Jabeur taking down Swiatek, Rybakina, Sabalenka, and co. But alas, maybe her time will come one day. Probably not this year. All right, don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those of you watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, we'll see you soon.